Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to break down verse 2 of the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah. I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
Hey there guys, how's it going? My name is Sumit Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy, and I'm a flow state coach, which means that I help you feel better and perform better. Today we're breaking down verse 2 or chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching. This is a part of the series, so if you haven't checked out verse 1, go check that out before this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be reading a version translated by William Scott Wilson, and then I'll be reading a version by Gia Fu Feng and Jane English, to just notice the contrast between the two. But they're very, very similar, but just reworded because, these are translations. So let's go with this version first. Everybody understands the beautiful to be beautiful, but this only creates the concept of ugly. Everybody understands the good to be good, but this only creates the concept of bad. There can be no existence without non-existence, no difficult without easy, no long without short, no high without low. And without the sounds of musical instruments and human voices, where would their harmony and cacophony be? Before and after only depend on which one follows first. Therefore, the sage resides in non-fabrication and conducts himself according to wordless teachings. All objects in the world come into existence, but he does not judge them. They are born, but he does not possess them. The sage acts, but relies on nothing. He accomplishes and moves on. By moving on, he never has to leave. Now we're reading this version. Under heaven, all can see beauty as beauty only, because there is ugliness. All can know good as good, because there is evil. Therefore, having and not having arise together. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short contrast with each other. High and low rest upon each other. Voice and sound harmonize with each other. Front and back follow one another. Therefore, the sage goes on without doing nothing. Teaching, no talking. The 10,000 things rise and fall without cease. Creating, yet not possessing. Working, yet not taking credit. Work is done, then forgotten. Therefore, it lasts forever. Basically, here we're understanding the secret to the sage's success. Not to dwell on things, not to be so outcome dependent, but to let things be as they are, to understand the power of silence. The sage goes about doing nothing, teaching no talking, and here it says, conducts himself according to wordless teachings. So he's essentially learning from nature at the end of the day. He's making the water his mentor, the trees his mentor. He's learning from the Tao. So first of all, we have to understand this duality and polarity, this relativity, complementary understanding of the yin-yang principle, okay? There is this idea of formlessness, okay? Before and after only depend on which one follows first. This is no form. This is also kind of mentioning the concept of wu-wei, of effortless effort, or action of non-action. It's a very, very powerful statement. I love this one. Without the sounds of musical instruments and human voices, where would their harmony and cacophony be? Also, what I noticed is that the Tao Te Ching really focuses on amorality in the sense of there's not really a basic understanding of good and evil. I think Taoism does mention that we are born good and believes in some of those concepts. However, this is a path more about integrity, integration. And so, just because we label something as evil, it's not really solving that evil. In the West, I know there's this understanding of punishment. If you do evil, you get punished, and it's this bad thing. Let's scorn it. Let's push it away. Now, I once read the book, Now or Never, Preston Smiles' book with his partner, Alexi. And they created this reframe for good and bad, or right and wrong, and instead called it effective or ineffective. Now, I understand this is still a duality split, but isn't that a less judgmental way of looking at this, right? Or are we putting our preconceptions into the mix that's stirring the pot and getting things more confusing rather than more simple? It can seem a bit confusing and overwhelming. However, once you truly embody the teachings, you'll start to notice an inner peace, and that's one of its principles. It's going to get you to feel more free and easy and peaceful. Other thing I've noticed is it's not setting any frames for your reality, right? It's not saying that you have to live a 9-to-5 life, that you have to be like this, and it doesn't have such rigid, strict Confucian morals and constructs and things like this. It was kind of an anti-Confucianism in that sense. So let's play. Allow yourself to be creative, create your own style, allow yourself to explore and live life to your understandings of freedom. But also, let's not put our subjective lens over everything. Let's look at nature and learn from it. And though nature can have these, nature doesn't show mercy, nature doesn't have this kind of like justice system and things like this, we can still understand that there is this deep, profound healing quality. And our human-made, creations can sometimes even get in the way of that nature, destroying the planet and things like this. So if you guys have any comments about that, I'd love to hear it. Lao Tzu here is telling us to live in perfect harmony, in perfect oneness. There's no attachment to things. Things just simply are. It is what it is. Again, it simply just is. Accepting and loving everything, nothing is excluded, nothing is pushed away. It's the idea that one can't exist without the other, right? So how can you be tall if you don't know what short is? Short has to exist for something to be tall. What is heat but the absence of cold, right? And so starts off by saying everybody understands the beautiful to be beautiful, but this only creates the concept of ugly, right? Because once we perceive something, when we see something as beautiful, we have to have a perception of what ugly looks like for it to be beautiful in the first place. So essentially it's saying that the world of our ego has created these duality splits. A place where there is separation, a place where there is opposition. Where things aren't equal, this is where judgment is born. In order for our ego to feel safe, we've got to label everything. We've got to comprehend everything. Because the unknown scares the ego. This is why when we get into egolessness or flow state, it can be quite scary because it is unknown. This is why we can all live in the same world with differing viewpoints. Something that's so valid for the flow state is that the challenge skills ratio is actually perceived challenge and perceived skills, right? So perception creates reality. So start to understand that just because you perceive this as challenging, it's going to be more challenging. Because you perceive yourself as having that skill, you're going to be more skilled. Or you can perceive yourself as very lowly skilled, and that's going to impact it. So by emphasizing one side of the coin, you're automatically taking into consideration its opposing principle or opposite side. That if you get trapped in a one-sided reality, you're going to be living in fear, not possibility. The more you try to make life easy for you, the more difficult it's going to get. The more you try to cling on to something, the more of an opposite effect it's going to have. This is also why desperation and neediness is not attractive in relationships. It's like you have this need, however, it pulls you into the opposite pole. Nature doesn't have these splits. The flower isn't looking to the flower next to it and trying to compare itself to it. The tree isn't thinking I'm beautiful or ugly. Even if it has twisted branches, it still is a tree. It is what it is. It's following nature's code or the Tao. A horse isn't comparing itself to a donkey and thinking, that donkey's pretty ugly, bro. The key to the Tao is to live a centered life, a neutral life. To understand we live in a world of duality, but still embracing both poles, embracing the gray area, embracing the unity in everything. Understanding that everything is dependent on everything else. So this is how we create a coherence, a resilience, more compassion. The person is good or bad, we don't know. They just acted according to sort of series of events or actions. One thing you can practice while going through this chapter or verse is when you're feeling upset or triggered by something, what is it teaching you? Right? Because the opposite is there. Like, usually the suffering is there to teach you some form of wisdom. So can you see the Tao even in the mundane, even in the ugly, even in the grotesque? Can you still see the Tao? Can you refine your spirit through this polarity? You've got to bend and flow with the flux of life. You have to choose the path of the sage. The sage acts but relies on nothing. He accomplishes and moves on to the next thing, on to the next thing. By moving on, he never has to leave. And in this version, it says, work is done, then forgotten, therefore it lasts forever. You don't stop working, right? You don't suddenly retire. This is not the Tao. You work and you move on. You have some other work. Okay? You create, but you don't possess your creations. You're not like, oh, this is mine. I created this. Give me all the credit. Give me all the credit, man. No. You create, you express, you let it go. And you get followers simply through your beingness, through your silence, through the power of silence. You don't need to talk much. You don't need to say much. When you're expressing the Tao, it comes through in your beingness. Somebody who really embodies the Tao, you can't really easily put them into a box, right? It's true when we see Lao Tzu, we think of every stereotypical wise old master from every movie. However, at the same time, we can't really put this man in a box because we don't know much about him, to be honest. Right? He's left mysterious, and this is the quality of the universe. We still don't know what it is, and so we embrace the uncertainty. We don't allow ourselves to label and get trapped in this egoic minefield. So high and low, front and back, long and short, difficult, easy. This version says, this is another version, it says, being and non-being create each other. Acts without expectation, right? The sage acts but relies on nothing. It's not attached to the outcome. You do your work, you forget about it, you move on to the next work. This is how you leave a legacy. This is how your success accumulates without you actually being possessed by the constructs of success. The work lasts forever. The success lasts forever in this case. Okay, because there's this non-attachment, there's this non-neediness to it. There's this acceptance, embrace, surrender, letting go, non-possessing quality to the flow and the paradox of this amazing sacred text. So I hope you enjoyed this interpretation. Quite a simple one. Makes sense. If you have any questions, shoot me a message. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. Let's get it today. Boom.